Are Donald Trump and Zohran Mamdani in love? And will they hook up? The answers to that and more on today's Joey Show. Morning, folks. Welcome to the Joey Show. I'm Joey Avery. Boy, do we have a special, spectacular program for you today. Our lead story brings back a favorite character in the saga of the Joey Show. The man whose name we all know sounds like a minor league second baseman, the one, the only, Zohran Mamdani, batting second, folks. Clips have been making the rounds constantly. Zohran Mamdani made it to the White House. And much to a lot of people's surprise and perhaps to the chagrin of GOP lawmakers who were hoping to make Zohran a boogeyman in the upcoming election, it turns out he and Trump are motherfucking boys. Who saw that coming? How could this possibly be? Let's roll a couple clips here. I mean, just you've probably seen these, but just a little bit so you can get an idea of some of the questions that they were getting, how Trump was letting Zohran answer them, just to lay the groundwork a little bit, and then we'll provide some hot sexual analysis, as we always do.
Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I'll use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes.
Well, but I know, but it'd be fluid. That's a lot quicker too. You know, I mean, he's working very hard. For him to be, that's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes, and driving takes you a long time.
Just vibing right there. Now, a little tiny thing he does there that I think is great is he's able to stay on message. He understands the types of questions, curveballs, the thing that the media is going to do, and he pivots back to, hey, there's shit I want to get done. Let's stay on message. Here's the one that you've probably definitely seen where they ask him in front of Trump if, of course, Trump is a fascist.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
He's just like, yeah, call me a fascist. See if I give a fuck. Who cares about the press? The press are the ops, but you, Zohran, you are my boy. Now, everyone's been kind of trying to understand what this is. Is this Trump being old and not knowing what's going on? Was he so charmed by Zohran that he just had to fall in love with him? I think it's a lot more simple than people think. I think Trump is a lot more simple than people think. People get lost in a million-word think pieces where maybe it's the man wants to be liked. It is somehow that simple. That shocks people because they're like, this dude's calling reporters piggies, which he did do. He said, quiet, you little piggy. That's what he said to a lady reporter. People are shocked by it because he says such mean things to people, but actually he just lashes out when he thinks people don't like him. That's how much he wants to be liked. Now, he respects winners, and Zohran won. He respects that. What he did, though, is he came in and he said, yeah, I won this. Yeah, I'm a winner, but also here's what we both love. New York. You love New York. I love New York. Let's talk about how we can do it. We share some of the same voters, people who want to focus on affordability, some of the same populist forces that Trump understands. He understands. Zohran also gets those. And he also walked in and was like, look, I'm going to stand tall, but I'm not going to antagonize you. I'm not going to just do what would be politically beneficial for me, where I rile up the base by saying, no, I declined to meet with that fucking fascist. He said, hey, I'm going to go to the Oval Office. I'm going to say thank you. And I'm going to make you feel a little bit of love from a city that you genuinely, desperately have always really deeply wanted it from. There was a whole piece, an article that came out years ago where Trump was talking to the New York Times, and they recorded the meeting. It was during his first term. And he basically was like, how come you guys just never wrote the article that was like, hometown boy did good? I'm the president. Why didn't you write that article? That's all he's ever wanted. So he respects people who stand on their own business. He respects people that go toe-to-toe with him. But if you make him think he's going to hate you, and then you come in and you're like, hey, we can agree on some things. Let's work together. You can actually be fine. The mayor of San Francisco, believe it or not, kind of did that. He was like, hey, man, you're right. There are things about our city we'd like to clean up. But just so you know, we're doing them, and we think it's better that we do them instead of you sending in the fucking Marines to do it. It's a lot more simple than people think. And it showcases that Zohran is a little bit more sophisticated than people think. It's basically like this. Have you ever been in a fight with somebody where you're like, fuck that person? You're talking shit about them. You're gossiping about them. You're going toe-to-toe. And you're like, you know what? Fuck you. It's on site. Throw hands at daddy. And then you like see them in person at a party and you're like, oh shit, hey, what's up? Hey, how are things? It's like that. And Trump has always been like that. With world leaders, talking shit to people, calling motherfuckers Lil Rocket Man. But then he meets Kim Jong-un in person. He's like, he's an all right guy. Nothing wrong with him. He's a fine guy. He's a bit of a cherub. This guy, turn off the fucking... I really hope you guys can't hear the leaf blower. Shocking note here, folks. This is not a green screen. This is not a set. We are live in nature, and there's a motherfucker with a leaf blower for no reason. For no reason. He's not doing shit. He's pushing leaves from one place to another just to spite me. That's how I feel, and you can't prove it otherwise. I think people with leaf blowers, and this is not a racial or class-based thing, I think some of them know exactly what they're doing. And it is not blowing leaves. It is making people want to blow their own brains out. So I just hope that this microphone is not catching it because I'm not stopping, dude. I'm like Zohran. I'm not going to bow down to big leaf blower. I'm going to stand on fucking business out here in this chair. Now, the point is, where do we think this is going to go? Because the concept, what the right wanted to do with Zohran, what they wanted to do was turn him into a terrorism-supporting, Sharia law pitching, full-on communist with Trump's backing, because Trump putting the light on you and saying all those things can make it happen. But what has ended up happening is he's like, we're going to work together and try and make New York a little bit great. Here's where that could all turn. Trump is going to start seeing this positive coverage, and if he feels like people are saying, oh, Zohran just fucking sunned him, then he might turn, then he might flip, because he might be like, fuck that. But I think Zohran is sophisticated enough, he's going to be able to ride this out, and we will see. Trump is not consistent. You get him on a good day, you get him on a bad day, we'll see. What was the initial question? Are they going to hook up? Look, it's possible. It's possible. I think there's a real love story there. And I'm excited for them, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Are they the buddy cop film that America has actually needed to finally heal? Is their union something that is timely, perfect, and important just in time for Thanksgiving? I mean, how beautiful is this story as we head towards the holiday, and everyone is thinking about sitting around their dining room table with the craziest members of their family. Maybe you have a crazy, potentially drunk, a little bit old, a little bit angry, a little bit MAGA. You have that grandfather or uncle. That person might be there. And then you might have a cousin who people are like, I think that cousin is a full-on communist who is 62 genders right now at the table. Now, couldn't the holiday be beautiful and memorable and heartwarming if those two in the end were like, hey, we agree. Some shit's too expensive. Let's try to work on that. Is that the Hallmark movie that we need? Are you feeling this in your bones right now. It's kind of beautiful because at the end of the day, just like Trump, when he's yelling at people, a lot of our political angst is just us lashing out because we all, a little bit, just want to feel safe and just want to feel loved. And I'm happy they saw that in one another. And maybe you can use that to see that in someone this fine Thanksgiving yourself. Trump is a simple man. I have an article here. I was reading The Economist, folks, because I'm a learned scholar. And my brother subscribes to it. And I found it on the table last night after getting home. A couple glasses of wine. And I said, hey, let's read some Economist. They had an interesting article here, the Black Friday presidency. And it's just talking about Trump and the way he runs Washington. And I thought it was kind of interesting for the holiday season because it was all about gift giving. It's kind of this beautiful article that's all about what the season is about, which is the giving of gifts. Now, in our case, it is the giving of gifts from foreign governments and operatives to our president for economic gain, and it's actually kind of depressing because it's all about corruption. But again, it's not the positive way to look at things. And we're going to be positive this season because we have to be, because we deserve to be, because we're not Grinches. So here are some nice gifts that he got just in time for the holiday. Recently, a delegation of Swiss businessmen arrived there bearing a gold bar and a Rolex clock for Donald Trump, who said, "Job well done," and accepted them on behalf of his presidential library. Days later, America's tariff rate on Switzerland dropped by more than half. You give the gift that someone wants, and they might give you one back. It's a Christmas story, and it's beautiful. In May, Qatar gave Mr. Trump a presidential jet worth $400 million, also bound eventually for his library. In October, the Gulf state won approval to build a training facility for its fighter pilots at an Air Force base in Idaho. Again, that's beautiful. So it goes on to talk about how we used to have things, guardrails in place that would kind of guard against perceived corruption, and kind of this like checks and balances system that was in place because, hey, what is our government supposed to know? That human nature is greedy, that power centralizes, and we want to have checks against this. So there are all these like things and rules that you could and couldn't receive from foreign governments. And it's kind of saying how he set up this tariff structure, and now what happens is people can go give him personal gifts, and then he can be like, oh my God, they love me, I love them, and then he can cancel a bunch of tariffs, and then he gets these gifts and people get what they want. And it's blatant corruption, which is only spirals on top of the fact that what he's done with the world of crypto and Liberty Financial and pardoning crypto leaders who have done horrible things, it makes it just easy and completely blatant and obvious that people can enrich his family as he uses the power of the most powerful seat in the world to coax that out of other nations and then just enrich himself personally. And again, that is not ideal, but it is a negative read, and it is kind of a nice holiday story. So you have to think about that this holiday season. Who do you want in your life to love you? And what can you give them, and what can they give you in return? Because the art of gift giving and the concept of it, you have all these Christmas movies, and it's like, it's really about giving, and it's about showing the people in your life that you care for them, and it's about selflessness. And it's like, no, actually, it's about raw power dynamics, corruption, and supporting our GDP through purchases. And I don't think that is such a sad story, because maybe that's what Christmas has been about all along. It is, of course, a celebration of Jesus Christ, who famously turned water into wine. Why? Because of the profit margin and how much you can actually sell wine for and then get people drunk and make them suck your cock. That's not actually what the story is about, but it's heartwarming, and we are here for the holidays. Now, as far as the holidays are going, there's a lot of articles here about about anxiety. There's one here in the New York Times about anxiety. It's what's for Thanksgiving dinner. It's talking about raising prices, talking about how the economy is better, but people aren't feeling like it. It's this University of Michigan study. It talked to people about how they're feeling about everything, and everyone's sentiment was negative. The concept was like, even though the numbers in the economy say they're good, we're not feeling that. We feel like the prices of everything are too high. We feel like there's this this term, it's obviously anxiety, which was one of the top songs of the year, which it talks about. But also, I think the term they put in here was loomingness. Loomingness was a word that people felt because people are scrolling the news and they're seeing things, and it's feeling bad. There's this large-scale amount of anxiety. And I want to tell you guys that it's all in your head and you're being pussies. Now, let's be clear. The market fundamentals are not great. The S&P 500 is doing well, but the S&P 493 is not doing nearly as well. What am I saying here? The Mag 7, the Magnificent 7, the big companies in the world that are heavily indexed in tech and AI are making things feel like they're better, but the underlying markers that we used to use to understand an economy really are just serving to benefit those roughly in this large AI space. So you have billionaires and oligarchs raking in a ton of money, then the average person is not getting that much. Now that is not ideal. So you have this thought that's like, hey, things are going well, but not for the average person. It feels like society is like, that sort of stuff. Like it could end up like fraying and not being good. And so that was the thing, is like the common concept that everyone has is like this anxiety, and they're on their phone all the time. And again, what I'm telling you guys is stop being so negative and shut the fuck up. And the reason that I'm saying that is not because I don't see all this, is not because the people who are leading politics shouldn't focus on this, harp on this, try to fix it, understand that there's going to be a politics that speaks more to the common person than, the people running AI and running the global economy and all this shit. Yeah. But also, you do need to chill the fuck out. And you do need to get off your phone, because it is going to fucking drive you crazy. It is going to drive you crazy. There was another article that I read that's about news consumption amongst the younger demographics, how people aren't reading papers. They're not reading the New York Times. They're not reading the Washington Post. They're not reading any of that. What are they reading? They're reading nothing. They're watching TikTok. They watch this man called News Daddy. The article here, why college students prefer News Daddy over the New York Times. And it talks about how people are just always on their phones. They're doom scrolling, and it's gotten so introduced to people's minds that they actually just want to get their news from TikTok instead of going to the New York Times and reading something. Because they're like, well, legacy media has a slant and a bias, and I can't trust that. However, News Daddy is where the fuck it's at. And it's a battle. There's a real battle going on in the younger generation in terms of where they get their news, where they consume it, who they trust. And the battle is between News Daddy and a talking fish from SpongeBob. And the article positions this as a potentially negative thing. But I get it. Let's put up a photo of News Daddy. Look at that. Look at that guy. That's a fuckable face, and I mean that, and I'm not even into fucking the faces of men. But look at that. That's an attractive. That's news. That's how people want to. When you're sitting down and you're trying to look at like, oh wait, are we doing regime change in Venezuela? At least you want to be like, is this potentially Swedish guy smoked up or what? This dude's probably never had a pimple in his life. Look at News Daddy, News Father. News parent. I'd never heard of this guy. I looked at his page. I was like, okay, I get it. This is how people consume news, because news is where people are. Children are not going to the pages of the New York Times. They're going to YouTube. They're going to TikTok, and they want to get their news from a fish. I think there's a lot of concern because legacy media outlets have journalistic standards, journalistic practices. They pay people to do investigative reporting. This is actually how news gets made, is you have to have people go out on the ground. You can't all just be aggregators and people like me, not a fish, but dressed in a shark's one piece, also telling you the news just based on what I've learned from people who did actual reporting, which requires money. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to compete, and you're not a fish. And if I'm a college student and I am 19 years old and I am hungover because I've been drinking Buzz Balls or whatever children drink, or maybe they don't drink because I hear they don't drink, and I've been watching Twitch all night, really having fun watching someone else play video games, and I've been drinking fucking Red Bulls, so I'm a little hungover, and I don't feel great, and I'm scratching my eyes. I'm like, what's going on in the world? And it's like, yeah, we're actually going to war with Venezuela for reasons that no one other than Marco Rubio completely understands. I might rather hear that from a fish. I get it. I'm not all doom and gloom. This is my point. You can look at everything that's going on and be like, hey, let's freak out. Let's have anxiety about it. And I don't think that's right, because the news has always been about how everything could go wrong, how it could all come unraveling, how it could be a disaster. Now, when things are going well, the initial thought is, what could fuck this up? The higher the stock market goes, the more people go, this could fuck everything up. The further we go into, a situation, it's like, how could this all go away? How could we ruin things? I'm not saying there aren't problems. I'm not saying politicians shouldn't address them. But between the news media and the politicians, all you're going to hear about is how it could all go away. And it is Thanksgiving, and it is time to pull back, and it is time to be with your family, and it is time to have a nice time and enjoy it and not worry about what could go wrong at Thanksgiving dinner. Let your aunt and uncle fight. It's okay. It's not all doom and gloom. I don't think the New York Times is going away. I just think that people want to hear about it from a fish. We might be trending towards a fish-based society. And I'm not talking about the Japanese, although they do love fish so much they don't even cook it. This is not the point. The point is, people are going to get their news where they're going to get it. And then, you know what? They're not idiots. They'll cross-reference it. This article discusses how people, I've learned about something from the fish, and now I will go to the New York Times and check it out and make sure that the fish is right. But people have been burned long enough. They've been burned by, you fall into rabbit holes online. You start consuming your news, you get it from one place. You're like, okay, I only listen to The Daily, the New York Times podcast, and I only maybe listen to Pod Save America, the ex-Obama appointee, whatever. They worked in his administration, and they're kind of center-left. And maybe you got into it that way, but then you were like, maybe I want to hear some more shit. So you start listening to like a Chapo Trap House or one of these more like dirt-baggy socialist, like left, like actually those centrist Democrats are fucking cooks. Like maybe you start being interested in that, and then you pick up on some, there's some like anti-Israel sentiment going on here, and that's kind of interesting. And then you're like, oh yeah, that is kind of interesting. Maybe they're right. And then all of a sudden, the algorithm is showing you a little fucking Fuentes. And you're like, who's this white boy with motion dropping the N-bomb? And why did he say Hitler was cool? I don't know if I like that. That's a little, but I'd only seen clips where he was being kind of critical of Israel, and I kind of trusted that. And now you're watching Candace Owens, and she might be having a mental breakdown. It's kind of hard to tell because she just said that like the French somehow had a trained assassin who killed Charlie Kirk, and now they're going to kill her, all because she's been talking about how the French president's wife has a penis. And now you're going, what is going on? And finally, there's just a fish on TikTok that just tells you one headline. And you're like, okay, well, at least now I know that's happening. There's room for the fish. We can't fight the fish. This happens in society. Time moves on. We get older. We become out of touch. And you see something the younger generation is doing, and you go, oh, Jesus, it's all gone to fucking shit. They're getting their news from a fucking fish. That's not even a mammal. How am I supposed to compete with a fish? You got to understand the fish. You got to understand why people listen to the fish, what those people are thinking. Even everyone through that life cycle that I mentioned of those interesting podcast content creators, people trying to help other people make sense of the world. Because at the end of the day, the world is a very messy place, and you're trying to make sense of it. And based on who you are and how you grew up and what you've consumed to this point, the way one person explains it might be the thing that actually locks in and makes the most sense to you. But at the end of the day, that's only a little tiny perspective, and you don't actually know what's going on, especially compared to things that you don't touch with your own hands. You realize the limits of the press and the limits of podcasts and the limits of content the second you're actually involved in a situation. Once you see the algorithm or the news media or someone actually discuss a field you know anything about, or turn on and start discussing a person that you actually know, you start realizing how bullshitty a lot of narratives can be. But you have to have empathy and understanding for why people think something makes sense, even if that thing is patently fucking wrong, if you want to have any chance of ever breaking through and changing someone's mind and showing them the real light. Sometimes what you have to do is have a little Trump Mamdani moment where you go, hey, I don't like a lot of what this person stands for or totally understand where they're coming from. But they're right about one thing, and they're speaking to people, and I'm going to connect with them on that. Maybe that's what you should do this Thanksgiving, ladies and gentlemen. You should have some turkey, but you should understand the fish, the news fish, and why it's captured the hearts and minds of an entire generation. I haven't watched any of the fish, folks. I read one article. But I'm right about everything I say, as always. As always. Now, I want to give a shout-out here to the crew, the 12s, all 12s everywhere, obviously, but also really fun show in Denver at Comedy Works on Sunday, and lo and behold, we had a fucking gaggle of 12s in the merch line. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. One of the 12s was wearing a Bakhtiari jersey. I was like, that is some deep fandom, and he didn't even know we'd had David Bakhtiari on the pod. But what was amazing is the 12s, and it was perfect timing for this entire episode, the 12s wanted something from me. A whole group of them lined up, and they had one simple request, and I was happy to oblige. They said, is it possible that we could get one live Zohran Mamdani? And we did it. We did a whole batting second. We had people lined up there. We did a group Zohran. We set it together. We screamed it. It echoed through the halls of Comedy Works, and it was a grand moment in the history of the pod, because the 12, even, yes, the joke, the concept of the 12 is that no one listens to that, but that is becoming not true, because 12s are taking it upon themselves to spread the gospel, spread the truth, and turn me into potentially the next news fish of the internet. You guys are the shit. A little bit more after the break here. Let's do some very quick tour dates, because I want you to come out and see me. I'll hit you with a Zohran in person. All right, tour dates. Of course, joeavery.com/live to come on out and see me. We've got Portland next week. Portland, we're going to be at Helium. And then Emerald City Comedy Club in Seattle. That's going to be Wednesday, Thursday of next week. Very exciting. Then Beverly, Massachusetts. That's just outside of Boston. The weekend after, Batavia, Illinois. That's just outside of Chicago. And by just, I mean a bit. And then San Jose Improv, rounding out 2025. Thank you guys to everyone who's come out. It's been a really fun year. It has, as we head into the turn of the year. I'm very grateful for you guys. We're slowly building the pod a little bit, but getting some more reach on clips. We've taped a special. I have that's coming out soon. We're close in that edit, and I've got a brand new hour. So if you've already come out and see me, anything before the special, I've got almost entirely a new set. So please come on out. And then January 22nd is Philadelphia, then Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, and tons more coming. JoeyAvery.com/live for more of that. All right, we're going to talk a little more Thanksgiving on the back end here and some tips for people facing a less than ideal holiday. But first, a little story. This was in the New York Times. Didn't get it from the fish. It's called "A City is Broke. Can billionaires' urbanist dream offer it a last chance?" And it's all about Susan. I don't know if it's Susan or Suizan. We're going to say Suizan City, and it's probably going to bother people if I'm saying that wrong, but it's not going to matter because no one is from there. Now, Suizan City is a tiny little town in Northern California here, Bay Area, Bay for life. Go Sharks. You see me in the one piece. Shout out to Tyson Gibson for the custom design, the homie. Suizan City is a city outside of San Francisco, a few hours, near a town called Fairfield, which is essentially a mall. And this city has had troubles financially. It's never quite been able to hack it financially. They've come up with a million different plans. It faces some natural struggles. You got a marsh on one side, you got Fairfield on the other, you got an Air Force Base. It's frankly not popping. It's got no motion. It's a white boy with no motion. So they've tried a million different things. They've tried to turn it into this, they've tried to turn it into that, and what has happened is people have started buying up this land. Tons and tons of acres, buying up all this land, hundreds of millions of dollars. And they did it kind of clandestinely. People are like, who buying up that land? What is it for? Some are like, is this for a fucking new Disneyland? Is this for what is this? It's the Bay Area. Is this going to be a they-them sanctuary? People don't know. People are confused. People want to know what's happening. Well, it is the Bay Area, and it turns out it's a group of rich-ass motherfuckers. Ramps. Okay, it's one dude who was like a top trader at Goldman Sachs. It's Steve Jobs' wife. It's Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy. It's the people from Stripe. It's all the people who've gotten super rich, and they're like, let's fucking take this town and build it into a billionaire utopia. Now, this is not, of course, like a zoo for billionaires where they can all go and have weird sex parties and have rockets, have garages that fit rockets. That might be a place that we get to in society, by the way. Like, it is possible that we get to a point where instead of having someone come over and show you their Porsche and their wine cellar, they're just showing you, they're like, yeah, this is actually my rocket. We go to space with it sometimes. It's not a big deal. So it's all these rich tech folk, and they're buying it up because they want to build a nice new city. They want something that everyone has kind of wanted. What if we could build a bunch of housing and help solve California's housing crisis and also make this city cool? Make it walkable. A walkable new city with nice, affordable housing in California next to a town that isn't working, that's funded by the rich people who can obviously get richer off it. But hey, what if they're getting richer, but they've provided a need and a service, and it's that could be so exciting to people. And that's kind of been the plan. But they're facing roadblocks because some people don't like it, and the reason people don't like it, it's in the article, but I'm also theorizing and I'm understanding and I'm empathizing and I'm being a nice guy, is because no one trusts these fucks for good reason. Am I painting with a broad brush? Is every person who got rich off tech bad? No, that's not true. I'm sitting in the Bay Area. We are built off of software and hard cocks. It's the Bay Area is all about. I get it. I think what makes people a little uncomfortable is the concept that these people that have not shown a great track record in terms of taking care of working people or the working class and instead have enriched themselves to an absurd degree are actually building a new city for benevolent purposes. And the real reason that people have backed this up with a bit of concern is because of how they've already started doing it. The way they bought the land was like real shisty, hardball, fuck you tactics. Now, I get it. It's hard to get something done with a local government. They don't see the future like us rich, techno, billionaire visionaries, of which I include myself. Why would I include myself in that? Well, we haven't launched a tech product yet, but I consider this podcast an app. I consider this podcast an app, a SaaS, software as a service, and I consider this podcast an AI company. And as such, I am thinking that we should IPO the pod soon. Would it be nice to crack 1,000 listens per episode on YouTube first? Maybe. But the investors that I am pitching are just people who understand the future, and the future's fucking me and us and the 12. Shout out to us. So the fact that the way they bought everything was incredibly sketchy and they used hardball tactics to push it through and that they're not really listening to the existing people there is a bit of a red flag for what a techno-futurist oligarch city built by billionaires might come to represent. However, and this is why I'm bringing it up, I think it's relevant to the concerns we are about to face on a larger scale. If the influx of extreme capital continues in this country, our best chance for high-paying jobs, futuristic outcomes, and better quality of life is going to end up in the hands of a few people. Those people by nature are going to be self-serving. If I had $1 billion, I'd be thinking about what I wanted to do with it too. I probably wouldn't just give it all away. Or like Kanye, who's apparently a billionaire, I would not just make my wife walk around naked. Something happens at that level of money, it seems. But we're heading towards a situation where our best opportunities to fix some of these structural issues created by this extreme separation in terms of wealth are going to have to be fixed by the benevolence of those with it. And that, I think, is something that should make all of us a little bit unnerved, because we don't want America to be Suisan City, a fucking ghost town that only has an opportunity because some people want to use a pittance of their trillions to make us a nice walkable town. But hot fucking damn, would I enjoy a nice walkable town. It is important. It is important. There's a real tug of war in American life between wanting to live in a city and be around the cool people, the fun fashion, the interesting pants, the good food, being in the center of it all, or disconnecting, having a child, and driving a fucking Chevy Suburban to a goddamn CVS that doesn't have the toothpaste behind lock and key. Which path will you choose? Do you want to have the actually good Thai restaurant that's authentic and not just a shitty over-fish-sauced pad Thai? Or do you want to have a well-organized CVS? This is really your decision as a 30-something in America. Choose wisely. Everyone knows what I'm doing, but I'll probably pivot at some point. Well, that being said, this is our last episode before Thanksgiving, obviously, because this is releasing on a Wednesday. And a slight personal note here. This holiday season is going to suck for me in a lot of ways because it's the first one that I've ever had without my dad, and that sucks. It's hard. Holidays are about family. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is that I have always been someone who loves the holidays. My family has certainly not ever been perfect, and you'll hear about this in my new hour and my old hour of stand-up. But I've always loved my family, and I've loved coming home and spending time with them, and I've always loved the holidays because to me it always felt like a time where, like, I'm going out, I'm working on things, I'm working hard, I'm grinding, I'm trying to elevate myself in my career, in my life, even just working out, just like all the things. Like you're just working so hard, and the holidays feel like maybe this moment where you can relax, come home, Wear sweatpants. Watch football on a Thursday. Chill. Get some time off work. Be with your loved ones. Eat a little bit too much. Drink a little bit too much. And just not fucking care about things. So I kind of didn't have a lot of, I wouldn't say empathy because I was not like in anyone's grill about it, but I never had the experience of people for whom the holidays were challenging. Like mine were in the normal sense. You'd be sitting around the table and be like, okay, we're fighting about that again. Jesus Christ. Like, all right, she doesn't like how he makes mashed potatoes. We're fighting about that. Like that, I understood those little things. There are little moments where you disconnect and you go, holy fuck, I forgot what it was like to be here. But I've never had them associated with a level of pain. And this year, I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but I know it's going to suck. And there are going to be moments, and some of them are going to be very sad. But what struck me as I was thinking about it and preparing for it is that is a good thing. Not because you wish it was that way, or not because it's pleasant or enjoyable, but because this pain or this realness or whatever's going on that you can kind of push off when you are heads down working, building a life, immersed in the day-to-day, doing whatever, you can kind of get disconnected from a real emotion that's sitting inside you. And the most important thing you can do when you're dealing with that, and it could be loss, it could be a trauma, it could be personal feelings of worthiness or whatever's going on, is when you get confronted with that and it's unpleasant, you go through that and you feel it. But I think what I've realized is that as you march through those feelings, they're the ones that you needed to feel, that were in there anyway. So if you're personally confronting a holiday season that's about to be challenging and you're not looking forward to it and maybe you're dreading it in some capacity, and I don't know what your particular situation is, but you just need to be kind to yourself, and you need to know that feeling those feelings is part of that journey, and whatever ones you're feeling are okay, and you'll get through it. And remember to have a little bit of fun while you are. Try to have fun with your loved ones, your friends, your family. But if that's not on the table for you this year, have fun with you, because it is a holiday. Eat a little bit too much. Take a step away from the table and look at yourself and wink at yourself in the mirror and down that glass of red wine and get another one and do that one just for you and have fun. But celebrate, take your time off, enjoy it. It's not always restorative, but try to make it a little bit for yourself as we charge into a couple weeks worth of holidays. And you'll always have the Joey Show to celebrate with. Thank you guys very much for listening. 12's up for Zohran. Thank you very much for listening to the Joey Show. I'm Joey Avery. We will see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank God